Next, we'll learn about the fish fins, which are divided into the tail fin, dorsal fin, pectoral fins, anal fin and sewing sections. First, crochet the tail fin, which is divided into Section 1, Section 2, slip stitch decoration, pendant and patch sections. Section 1 involves folding the fish body end, and crocheting one row together. Section 2 follows Section 1 with a chain cast on, working back and forth along the starting chain, and joining with Section 1 as you go. Finally, add slip stitch decoration, pendant and patch. Please watch my demonstration of the specific crochet method. First, crochet Section 1, tidy up the fish body. Fold along the seam at the gill area. The side with slip stitch marks on the fish head should face up. Fold the fish body at the last round. Insert into the 2 corresponding stitches at the front and back on the far right. Join yarn. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Work 1 single crochet in the same position. Then pick up the corresponding stitches at the front and back. Work single crochets evenly. Weave in the yarn tails together. Don't miss the slip stitch position for insertion. Check the stitch count after completion. Once confirmed correct, Section 1 is done. Now crochet Section 2. Continue with the yarn from Section 1. Follow the pattern chart for the corresponding number of chain stitches. Pay attention not to make the chains too tight. Keep them slightly loose. Once completed, the starting chain is done. Proceed to crochet row 1. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Return to the second to last chain stitch. Pick up the back loop on the wrong side, which is this carrying yarn. Make 1 single crochet. Continue downward, picking up back loops correspondingly to make single crochets. After completing the last back loop position, turn the fabric over underneath, corresponding to the side without slip stitch marks at the fish head. On the edge stitch of Section 1, make 1 slip stitch. Row 1 is complete. We will take the side with clearer texture of this row as the right side of the fabric. Continue to crochet row 2. First make a slip stitch on the left stitch. Then make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Skip 2 slip stitches underneath. Pick up the front loop of the single crochet stitch from the previous row. Work 1 single crochet into each stitch. Here you can find the small horizontal bar on the wrong side of the single crochet. The stitch at the upper left is the corresponding stitch for the single crochet. Pick up the front loop to insert the hook. Pay attention not to go through the slip stitch. Pay attention to the last stitch. Pick up the stitch and make a slip stitch. For the slip stitch at the edge here, you can choose to tighten or not. Just decide according to your preference. Row 2 is complete. Now work row 3. Make 1 chain as your beginning chain. Turn the work. Skip the slip stitch. Work the corresponding number of single crochets into the front loops of the single crochets. Complete with a slip stitch on the left stitch. Row 3 is complete. Move on to row 4. Make 1 chain as your beginning chain. Turn the work. Skip the slip stitch. Pick up the front loops and work the corresponding single crochets. Slip stitch into the last stitch to finish. Row 4 is complete. Continue to row 5. Make 1 chain as your beginning chain. Turn the work. Skip the slip stitch. Slip stitch into the starting stitch. Then pick up the front loops. Work the corresponding number of single crochets. Slip stitch into the stitch to finish. Row 5 is complete. Move on to row 6. Start and turn the work. Skip the slip stitch. Pick up the front loops of the single crochets and work the corresponding single crochets. Slip stitch into the last single crochet. Row 6 is complete. Now work row 7. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Skip the slip stitch. Begin picking up stitches and slip stitch. Then pick up the front loops of the single crochets and correspondingly make single crochets. Complete the front loops corresponding to row 6. On the left side is the beginning chain of row 6. Below corresponds to the slip stitch of row 5. Insert into the middle of the V-shaped loop formed by the slip stitch. Which means pick up the strand in front. Insert into the slip stitch position, which is here. Work 1 single crochet. After completing this, a horizontal bar forms below. This stitch is shown as red stitches on the pattern chart. Whenever you encounter red single crochets later, always insert and crochet using this method. Continue picking up the front loops of the skipped stitches. Correspondingly make single crochets. Complete the stitch positions of row 4. Here we encounter again this combination of beginning chain and slip stitch. Following the previous method, insert into the middle of the slip stitch braid, while also inserting into the position below. Work 1 single crochet. Continue picking up the front loops of the skipped stitches to make single crochets. After completing, at the slip stitch position before section 1, slip stitch. Row 7 is completed. For rows 8 to 11, continue to follow the chart. Work back and forth using the previous method. For the rows connecting to section 1, always pay attention to pick the corresponding stitch for slip stitch at the beginning or end. When crocheting, skip the slip stitch and leave it unworked. Then pick up the front loops to correspondingly make single crochets. Both during the process and at the edges, the slip stitches are worked by picking up the stitches. Complete this part. When counting the rows, pay attention to the widest part. Count the rows according to the texture. Now work row 12. First slightly stretch the loop. Turn the work. Skip the slip stitch. Slip stitch into the left single crochet stitch. Then pick up the front loops to correspondingly make single crochets. Once completed, row 12 is done. Continue to crochet row 13. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Slip stitch into the edge stitches. Then pick up the front loops to correspondingly make single crochets. When encountering a slip stitch, skip and leave unworked. Underneath, find the slip stitch at the end of row 11. Here work according to the crochet method of the red single crochet. Continue to pick up the front loops to correspondingly make single crochets. Finally slip stitch at the insertion point before section 1. Row 13 is completed. For rows 14 to 23 next. Continue to work back and forth while referring to the chart. Everyone complete it. Now I'll demonstrate row 24. Start with a slip stitch. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn the work. Pick up the front loops of single crochets to correspondingly make single crochets. On the last front loop, make a single crochet increase. Row 24 is completed. Continue to row 25. Start with 1 beginning chain to begin. Turn and crochet. Finish with a slip stitch. Row 25 is completed. Move on to row 26. Start crocheting while referring to the chart. After completing the single crochet increase at the end, chain 1. Row 26 is completed. Continue to row 27. Start with 1 beginning chain to begin. Turn the work. You can turn clockwise or counterclockwise. Just choose the side that's convenient for crocheting. On the second to last chain stitch, pick up the front loop of the chain stitch. Make a single crochet. Continue to pick up the front loops and work the corresponding stitch pattern. Slip stitch to finish the row. Row 27 is completed. For the following rows, continue working back and forth according to the chart. Pay attention to increase stitches at the end of the wrong side row. On the next row, pick up the front loop of the chain stitch, and work the stitch. After completing the last row, leave a 5 cm yarn tail, and cut the yarn. Hide the yarn tail inside the fabric. This is the final effect. Complete it as shown. That concludes section 2. Next, make slip stitch decorations. On the right side of section 2. Which is the side without slip stitch marks on the head? Follow the horizontal lines texture. Symmetrically work 7 slip stitch decorations. For specific placement, refer to the finished product, or adjust according to your preference. Watch my demonstration of the specific crocheting method. Here I use a swatch, taking the middle slip stitch decoration as an example. Note the right side facing up. Join yarn near section 1. Then move left along the horizontal line above these spaces. Work slip stitches. Crochet until about 0.5 cm away from the edge. Pull up a large loop. Leave a 5 cm yarn tail and fasten off. Tuck to the wrong side. Weave in the yarn tail along the texture of the slip stitch backside. You can weave in a few more stitches. This completes one slip stitch decoration. The remaining slip stitch decorations should be evenly distributed along the horizontal lines on both sides. Just follow the same method to crochet. Complete them. That concludes the explanation of slip stitch decorations. Next, attach one pendant each at the tip of section 2. Take a piece of yarn from section 2, thread the needle. Sew the pendant at the tip. No specific method required, just secure it firmly. Tie a knot at the end. Weave in the yarn tails properly. Attach the other pendant using the same method. Complete this step. Next, secure the patch below section 1. Horizontally attach 5 brown patches. Cut a piece of yarn used for securing pendants. Take one strand and thread it through a thin needle. Fold in half. Tie a knot at the yarn end. Position the patch where it fits properly, if you're worried about uneven placement. Start securing from the middle. Keep visible stitches minimal on the wrong side. Carry the yarn across to the other side to secure symmetrically. Fasten and weave in ends when completed. Now the patches are secured. Up to this point, the tail fin is explained. Next, learn the dorsal fin. Divided into two parts, the dorsal fin piece and slip stitch decorations. The dorsal fin piece begins with a foundation chain. First work back and forth along the starting chain. Then work back and forth on the other side of the starting chain. Complete the slip stitch decorations after finishing. Watch my demonstration of the specific crocheting method. Start with a foundation chain. Mindful to work slightly loose. Complete the first row after finishing. Make one chain as your beginning chain. Return from the second to last stitch. Pick up the back loop on the wrong side to work single crochets correspondingly. Finish with a slip stitch on the last stitch. First row completed. We'll consider the side with clearer texture as the right side of the piece. Move on to the second row. Slightly stretch the loop. Turn the work. Skip the slip stitch. Pick up the single crochet stitches to work 6 slip stitches correspondingly. Then pick up the front loops to crochet the corresponding stitch patterns. After completing the DC2 in 1, chain 1. Second row completed. Continue to crochet the third row, make 1 chain as your beginning chain. Turn the work on the second to last chain. Pick up the front loop to make a single crochet. Continue to pick up the front loops to work corresponding single crochets. When there are 4 single crochets left in the previous row, slip stitch into the stitch. Third row completed, for rows 4 through 8. Continue to crochet back and forth while referring to the chart. Pay attention, the ending of row 8 is 2 chain stitches. Please complete it. Now I'll demonstrate row 9. Make 1 chain as your beginning chain, starting from the second to last stitch. Pick up the front loop to work corresponding single crochets. When reaching the slip stitch position, this is the chain formed by the slip stitch. Pick up the strand of the slip stitch chain that's closer to you. Work corresponding single crochets. There are 5 slip stitches here in total. Don't miss any positions. Continue working red stitches with the same technique for insertion to make single crochets. Continue crocheting according to the chart. Ending at the slip stitch position of row 1. Continue inserting into the slip stitch's insertion point. Work single crochets. Row 8 is completed. Now work row 9. Rotate the fabric with the starting point facing up. Here the remaining chain stitch forms this kind of braid. Pick up the back loop to work the corresponding stitch technique. You can also tidy up the yarn tails together. After completing the last double crochet 2 in 1, chain 1. Row 9 is done. Rows 10 through 16 next. Continue crocheting back and forth according to the chart. The stitch pattern is similar to the other side. For the last row of red stitches, continue inserting the hook as before. Ending the last row, leave the last stitch unworked for the slip stitch position. Stretch the loop, leave a 40 cm yarn tail, and cut the yarn. For a neater look here, you can finish off. Pass through the V-shaped loop below the slip stitch on the left side. This makes the seam look nicer. This way the fin piece is completed. Now on the right side of the fin piece, centered symmetrically along the starting chain, work 4 slip stitch decorations. The specific position and quantity you can adjust according to your preference. The crochet method is similar to the slip stitch decorations on the tail fin. Refer to the previous demonstration to complete it. This concludes the explanation of the slip stitch decorations. The fin piece demonstration is now complete. Next we'll learn about the pectoral and anal fins. These two fins are identical. Both consist of the fabric piece, slip stitch decorations and appliques. The fabric pieces all start with a foundation chain, working back and forth along the starting chain. The crochet technique is similar to the fin piece. Pay attention to work into the front loop only on the first row. On the 11th row you'll encounter working slip stitches into slip stitches. Simply pick up the corresponding V-shaped loop to crochet. Finally leave a 40 cm yarn tail for sewing. Take a look everyone, this is the sample swatch after completing the pectoral and pelvic fin pieces. Once the fabric pieces are completed, on the first row of the textured right side, work 4 slip stitch decorations like this. Using the same method as before, the exact position can be determined according to your preference. Please complete them. Finally at the pointed tip on the left side of the starting chain, secure 1 circular applique. Different colorways have different colored appliques. Here I'm demonstrating with a sample swatch. You can directly secure it using the reserved yarn tail. If it's hard to thread, separate 1-2 strands from it. Insert into a thin needle. Sew and secure. Once secured well, weave the yarn to the tail position. Leave it for now. Just hide the starting tail along the texture of the wrong side. Now the patch is secured well. The pectoral fins and pelvic fins have been explained. Finally sew the crocheted fins onto the fish body. Check the finished product. Tail fin with right side facing up. At the gill seam, corresponding to the side of the fish body, secure the pectoral fin and pelvic fin respectively. Pectoral fin tip about 5 cm away from the fish head. Pelvic fin end about 1-2 cm away from the tail fin. The dorsal fin is on the other side, about 1-4 cm away from the fish head. And fold and sew it. For the exact position, you can refer to the finished product, or adjust it as needed. Please watch my demonstration of the specific sewing method. First, sew the pectoral fin and pelvic fin. Here I'll use the pectoral fin as an example. Thread the yarn tail into the needle. Place it in the right position on the fish body, with the pointed end facing the fish head. Note that the shorter side should be left hanging. Sew it to the fish body at the connecting position. The swatch position here is random. Pay attention to keeping the visible stitches on the right side as short as possible, not too noticeable. Don't sew through to the other side of the fish body. Just secure it roughly in the middle. The edges can naturally You can also secure by picking up only the loops on the wrong side, making the right side of the fabric look neater. Finally, fasten off and weave in the ends. Attach the tail fin using the same technique. Sew it onto the end of the fish body. Complete this part. Next, sew on the dorsal fin. Fold the dorsal fin along the starting chain, with the right side facing out, pointed end facing the fish head. Place it in the proper position. The swatch position here is random. Slightly wrap around the edge of the fish body. Then pick the corresponding stitches. Sew together with the fish body front and back. Adjust the position while sewing. No need to sew the edge position. Finally, tie off and weave in the ends. That's how the fin sewing is explained. Next, learn about the eyes. Start with a magic ring. Crochet in rounds counterclockwise for the eyepiece. Switch colors during the process. Then crochet slip stitches for decoration. Next sew on the highlight. Then secure it to the proper position on the fish head. Finally sew patches around it. Please watch my demonstration of the crochet method. First start with a magic ring. Complete R1. Crochet 6 single crochets into the magic ring. Don't miss the beginning chain. After that, close the magic ring. Finally join with a slip stitch at the starting stitch. If you do not know where the very first stitch is, count stitches from back to front. Pull tight. The first round is complete. We'll use the clearer texture side as the right side of the fabric. Move on to round 2. Pick up stitches from the previous round, and make single crochet increases. As you crochet, weave in the starting tail together. After completing, join with a slip stitch, and break the yarn. Trim off the remaining yarn tail from the beginning. The second round is complete. Now work on row 3. Attach yarn at the slip stitch position from the previous round. Pick up stitches to the left and work corresponding stitch patterns. Once the last slip stitch is completed, pull up a large loop, cut the yarn. Pull the tail through the left stitch to the wrong side. The third row is complete. Finally work on row 4. Attach yarn at the joining position from the previous row. Make 1 chain as the beginning chain. Work 1 single crochet in the same stitch. Pick up the braid on the left slip stitch, and make a single crochet increase. Continue to follow the pattern chart. After completing the slip stitch at the end of the previous row, on these 2 stitches of round 2, make a single crochet increase correspondingly. 1 single crochet. Pull up a large loop after completing. Leave a 30 cm yarn tail to fasten off. The method is the same as the fish gill finishing technique. Take a look. There's a relatively large gap here. You can slightly sew it up. To make the overall look more natural and neat. Leave the yarn tail for now. This completes the eyepiece. Once the eyepiece is finished, next crochet slip stitch decorations. Work in rounds at the insertion point of row 4. When reaching the fasten off position, pick a suitable spot to insert the hook here. Finally cut the yarn and fasten off. Tie a knot on the wrong side, and tuck in the yarn tail. This completes the slip stitch decorations. Next, secure the highlights. Take a strand of corresponding yarn. Pull one strand through a thin needle. Attach the highlights, which are transparent patches, to the third row of the eyepiece, roughly a bit above the middle position. You can adjust the exact position according to your preference. Once done, tie off and weave in the ends. The highlights are now secured. Next, sew the eyepiece onto the fish head at a suitable position, roughly centered on the fish head. With the gill seam below, the highlights facing towards the gills. You can also adjust the exact position according to your preference. Pick up the last round on the wrong side, and secure it to this side of the fish head. Be careful not to sew through to the other side. Adjust the shape of the eyepiece as you sew to make it look neater. Once done, tie off and weave in the ends. This completes the sewing of the eyepiece. Finally, attach 7 brown patches around the eyepiece. Arrange them in a fan shape facing backward. The attachment method is similar to the brown patches on the tail fin. Make sure the spacing is even when securing. Complete this step. That concludes the eye section. Finally, learn how to make button loops. We will start from foundation chain. Work back and forth in rows single crochets. Remember to leave a 20 cm yarn tail before starting. Row 1, work into the back bumps. For subsequent rows, work into the stitches of the previous row, correspondingly make single crochets. Finally, leave a 20 cm yarn tail and fasten off. This method is simple, refer to the pattern to complete it. Finally, use the reserved yarn from both ends. Sew both ends to the other side of the fish head. Here the loop doesn't need to distinguish right side or wrong side. Near the side corresponding to the dorsal fin. About 1 cm away from the edge. One end aligns with the stitch position of the 6th round on the fish head. The other end aligns with the edge of the gill. The exact position can be adjusted according to wearing habits and comfort. Pick up both ends and secure them to the fabric. No specific method required, just secure firmly. Pay attention to the gill part. Don't secure it to the fish body. When wearing, just stuff the fish body into the loop. Complete it. This explains the loop. The accessory is explained. Up to this point, the whole scarf has been fully explained. If you still have unclear parts during the crocheting process, please let me know. Don't hesitate to join our Facebook group to get supports. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.